Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another God of War video. Yeah, we're gonna do something a little bit different today with some facecam stuff, but I figured that this would probably be the best way to talk about how you can get into the God of War series. Of course, God of War has been going on for a very long time now, and I know many have only been introduced to the series since the technical fourth installment, at least mainline installment. With that being said, today I'm going to be talking about the best way you can experience this new series of games, and what you can do and essentially read if you wish to explore more of the God of War world. So I do want to reiterate this point. This is strictly focusing on the fourth game onwards, as I wish for this to be more of a preparation video building up to Ragnarok. If you guys like this, I may decide to do a video where I talk about the games of the original series, how to play them, and what ones you should miss. But again, it all comes down to you guys, so if you want it, please let me know down in the comment section below. It's the best way of letting me know. But without any further ado, let's talk about the best way to get prepared for Ragnarok, and what other bits of media you can expose yourself to before the oncoming apocalypse. Should be needless to say, as this is what the video is kind of based around, but the game is the best way to experience the God of War story. It's a pretty damn long experience, mind you, but if you strictly play through the story from start to finish, and do ignore the additional areas and side quests, you have roughly an 8 to 10 hour story. But if you wish to explore the full game, which I do highly recommend as there's plenty of challenges you can do to fill out your time, it comes out to roughly about 45 hours to 50 hours. I will say that is the best way to experience this game, but if you're not able to because you lack a console, then Let's Plays are always super duper helpful. So if we're starting off at the very top, playing the fourth installment is the best way to experience that game. But let's say you don't have a console, or you don't have accessibility to the internet. That's where this comes into play. God of War, written by J.M. Barlog, is the official licensed novelization of the game itself. Now, I'm not gonna lie, whilst pretty damn accurate to the game, there is some filler in between scenes in order to keep the pace of the story going. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but I think if you want your God of War fix, or if you're traveling on long flights and really enjoy the fourth installment and its story, this is definitely a pretty solid addition to your God of War experience. The only downside to this is that it doesn't add anything that we already don't know about the game, but it literally does say what it is on the tin. So I do highly recommend it for people who haven't been able to experience the game, but if you have the game, I couldn't say that there was much of a point buying this, unless you were traveling somewhere, of course. Now we are on to the creme de la creme, and that is God of War Lore and Legends. This thing is absolutely phenomenal, and even if you've experienced the fourth game, this is an excellent addition to the series if you want some extra bits on the side. Now, unlike the novelization, Lore and Legends does a lot of things if you are a fan of the world and the events that do transpire in game. One of the most interesting aspects about this is that the book serves as an encyclopedia and a way to expand on Atreus' journal that we do have in game. It's all done from his first person perspective, and there's additional dialogue, world building, and storytelling. It does a lot of stuff in here that we don't actually get in game, and presumably it's all canon. There's beautiful use of concept art and world building that really does justice for the God of War universe. Of all the bits of God of War material to have come out from the fourth installment, I could not recommend this enough for any fan. It quite literally has a timeline that etches out all of the events from Ymir's death. This is incredible for understanding how the world of God of War works. Like, honestly, I couldn't praise this thing nearly enough. It is simply a phenomenal addition to my catalogue, and for the contents that's actually in here, I mean, look at this thing, it's got quite a bit going on. This is kind of a steal for £20, which probably rounds up to about $25. So again, if I were to recommend one to buy, especially if you've experienced the game firsthand, this is without a doubt the way to go. But for every shining star, there is unfortunately some dull ones. Now, from what you can tell, these are obviously two comic book tie-ins for the fourth game, and whilst on paper they actually seem interesting, as this one deals with Kratos escaping Greece, and this one deals with a clan of berserkers. Both of them ultimately just lead to nothing. So first, let's talk about Fallen God. Now, Fallen God is a really mixed bag because I feel like it's a comic book series that had a lot of potential and a way to kind of allow older fans to connect with this new series that's going on. Unfortunately, Fallen God does fall short in that respect. The premise for it is excellent, as on paper, it seems to answer the question we were all asking of how did Kratos go from Greek mythology to Norse mythology? But here, he doesn't end up in either of those mythologies. He ends up in Egypt. And what goes on there? Not much. He's just told, you gotta go to Norse mythology. I genuinely wish there was a little bit more to that, but it's that simple. Sorry, I'm a little bit speechless in that respect because there was so much potential for how amazing Fallen God could have been, but it feels like it kind of squanders its own idea. But the written dialogue and artwork, they fall really flat. Nothing about it really stands out. Fallen God unfortunately does feel like a bit of a wasted idea. The premise is fantastic, and I just wish that they followed through on what they had, because it would have explained a lot in the grand scheme of things. But unfortunately, I don't feel like I could actually recommend anyone watching this video with Fallen God. It's not a travesty by any means, but in the grand scheme of the God of War world and story, this is simply a footnote in a much greater tale. So I would say only pick this up if you were a hardcore fan and wish to collect all of the bits of God of War media. Now, a second one is simply labeled as God of War. This takes place a few years after Atreus has been born, where he's still kind of a young man and there's still that disconnection between Atreus and Kratos. It's actually pretty good in terms of writing. It's a lot better. But in also saying that, the problems are still there from Fallen God, as the artwork and writing is still unfortunately the same. So it can come across as a bit flat. Again, much like Fallen God, the premise is really interesting, but in execution doesn't really lead up to anything at all. If I were to say anything about this, it feels like a side quest to the God of War story. It's an accompanying tale, which I think some people will enjoy. So again, whilst I think these two comics aren't terrible by any means at all, I just think that there are better things to offer you. Lore and Legends by far stands out as the best bit of God of War media that I recommend all of you to read if you're a God of War fan. It's a great way of feeling like you're reading Atreus' journal and experiencing the God of War universe from his perspective. It has a timeline that etches out the world of the series, making it feel more alive, and in the back there's concept art and a bestiary, so it'll tell you more details about the monsters that inhabit this world. Lore and Legends is simply fantastic, and I do highly recommend this out of all of them. The J.M. Barlog book is a fantastic novelization of the events that happen in game. If you don't have the opportunity to experience the games, I would say for about £10, this is definitely a steal. So I would definitely recommend it if you truly love the story of God of War. As for the comic books, I would only recommend hardcore fans to pick this up, because again, whilst not terrible, I don't feel like they add too much to the world and story of God of War. The premise for them is much better than the execution that is there. I really wanted to like these, but unfortunately at the end of the day, I can only recommend collectors and hardcore fans to pick these up. So with that being said, that has actually been it for me. I hope this video has been helpful and has given you a rough idea of what bits of God of War media I can recommend you here, that you do pick up and read. Like I said, some of these are actually super good, and whilst not all of it lives up to the expectations of the others, I feel like there's still something there for everyone. At the end of the day, we all like God of War, and if you're struggling to get into the universe or understand what's going on, I like to think in some way that this video may help you explore the rest of the world that does exist outside of the game. Of course, if you're still new and still getting to know everything, I do have my infamous History of series that I do recommend many newcomers actually give a watch. But otherwise guys, that has been it for me, and I hope this has been super beneficial for you learning what to look out for in the God of War universe. But for now, as always everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone, see you soon.